So, hey everyone, welcome back. I've got a bit of a different video today. I've got my friend Wendy here as a guest on the show today, and I'm actually going to be putting this, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, it'll be a few shorter videos, but the whole thing will be on YouTube. But before we dive into some of the exciting topics today, and we've got some great ones, I'd actually like to ask Wendy, first of all, welcome.
Thank you so much.
And secondly, if you could just, for the viewers out there that are watching from my side of the world, introduce yourself shortly and tell people a little bit about what you're all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. My name's Wendy Maynard, and I am a business and marketing strategist. So I've been doing this, I hate to say it because it dates me, but for about 2 decades now. So I originally co-founded a marketing firm, and actually, I've just so everyone knows, since folks are listening on your end of the world, I'm located in Oregon. I live in a small town called Ashland. It's in Southern Oregon. And so I co-founded a marketing firm up in Portland, Oregon. So that's about, it's kind of on the northern end of Portland. I'm on the southern end, but, of Oregon. And almost 2 years ago, actually the end of May, it'll be 2 years, I sold my half after successfully helping to grow it to a multi-million-dollar level, because I wanted to just simplify my life, get out there, help entrepreneurs. And then also I was traveling a lot, and I have 2 young, very exuberant boys. I wanted to spend more time with them, but I help entrepreneurs get authentic online visibility to grow and scale their businesses to whatever level they want to take it, to 6, 7, 8+ figures. I've helped all sizes of companies. And then really also to grow their personal brand, grow their business brand. So really just helping them to grow so that they can impact more people in the world.
Nice. That's absolutely something that ties in nicely to a lot of the stuff that I've talked about in my videos in terms of that branding and everything. And I think one of the things you mentioned is something I love that I'm seeing more of, in terms of, you mentioned that you wanted to spend more time with your family. And
Yeah.
it's something that I love, that the sort of, I guess, perception of entrepreneurial ventures is shifting from, work hard all the time to make money, over to, work hard to be able to create an environment for you to enjoy life on your terms. And that's something I think is really important to focus on as well. And one of the things I've seen you post about and talk about in quite a lot of detail, and actually enables entrepreneurs to just work more smart rather than just harder and harder, is a focus on what you often refer to as premium pricing, and why not to be afraid of that. So when you talk about that premium pricing, why is that so important to you?
Well, it's important to me for a couple of reasons. So I do see a lot of online entrepreneurs out there talking about the value ladder, where you start out with your $7 ebook, and then you sell your $47 masterclass, and then $97, whatever. Well, if you do the math on that, do you know how hard it is to make a decent income with $7 and $47 products? It's pretty darn hard. And the truth is that once you get the confidence and you understand the methodology to create a premium price package, and you learn how to sell it, it's actually as easy, and I know a lot of people are not going to believe me, but it's true, even easier to sell than a low ticket offer. And the reason is because you're actually catering to a whole different type of buyer. So the type of buyer who wants premium priced service, they're more sophisticated, and they're actually looking for a transformational result. They're not interested in purchasing a commodity type of product, which is really, or service, which is really what you're doing. You're forcing yourself down into a red ocean. If you read Blue Ocean Strategy, you're forcing yourself down into a red ocean, which is the bloody sea of sharks, where you're always forced to compete on price. Premium pricing automatically elevates you into an arena of differentiation. And then if you do a few more things, you can actually differentiate yourself and carve out your own blue ocean. You're positioned as the expert, the authority. You attract a whole different type of buyer. And as I said, like once you learn how to create an offer that fits in that, it's actually easier to sell.
Oh,
And you have to sell less a month. I'm sorry, I just forgot, you have to sell
no.
fewer a month to reach your income goals. And because you're not hustling, trying to deal with all these onesie twosies, small type of projects, one-off projects, or trading hours for dollars, or whatever it is that you're doing, you actually have more time to serve fewer clients, which brings your clients better results as well.
Absolutely. And I think it does paint that picture of someone who's truly dedicated to their craft. And
That's right.
you mentioned commodities, but even within the world of commodities, you see pricing as such an interesting strategy, because I studied psychology in college, and one of the courses was actually sort of psychology and advertisements. And it's incredible what a big name some companies have created for themselves simply by marketing themselves as a luxury or as a premium. And if you think about how many people want a Rolex, but it's a watch that tells the time just like any other watch, but people want it because it speaks to that level of luxury that people are looking for. And even though that's a completely different market, I think premium pricing for service-based entrepreneurs especially can paint that picture of you price yourself that way because you can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I actually wrote a whole blog article on the psychology of premium pricing. I'll send it to you. You probably find it interesting, or you may already know all of it. But there's tons of interesting psychology behind premium pricing. And the thing that I run up against with a lot of entrepreneurs is that they have a lot of fear around this, and they believe that if they charge a lower price or they reduce their prices, they'll actually be more competitive. Excuse me, but it's actually not true. They become less competitive. They become more attractive at a higher price.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, that really speaks to the consumer as well, and it communicates a certain quality. Because if I'm going up against another, let's say, coach, let's say if the two of us were vying for the same client, and I'm saying, oh, look, I can do it cheaper, I can do it cheaper, I can do it cheaper, it doesn't exactly paint me in the most viable light as a supplier of something. It paints me in a light of desperation, and one that doesn't exactly dress me up as the most exciting option on the market.
Right. I always like to compare it to like a fancy dinner. Like if you're going out and getting a really fancy cut of steak or a really fancy lobster dinner, and the restaurant, the waiter comes to you and says, hey, you know what? We really want you to eat this, so we're going to discount it, and it's only going to be $11 today. And the first thing you're going to think is like, what is wrong with this? Is this like, the catch from a week and a half ago?
Yeah.
Right? You're already suspect. So it completely changes your perception of the experience, which is really amazing and fascinating when you look at the buyer's perspective.
Oh, absolutely. And I think especially from the sales process of being not afraid to say no and not being afraid to walk away from a deal, because I think especially like you're saying, when people are starting out and they're doing one of their first deals, if a client says, well, it's a bit steep, some people that I've worked with personally and mentored and coached, their first instinct is to go, well, look, I can cut you a deal, I can give you some discount, or I can do this, or I can do that, or I can add a load more services to it. And they start sort of working themselves out of profit because they're putting so much on top or removing so much from their bottom line that they end up working themselves into a corner, and then they start offering that to everyone.
Well, and the other problem with that, and I wish this wasn't true, except back in my early days, unfortunately, I had to learn this the really, really hard way. When you give someone discounts, when you give them free work, when you do any of that, even in the initial sales process, even if they're good people, you're training them to be a bad client.
Yeah.
And you're training them that you will accept discounts and free work. And so why wouldn't they ask you for that again and again? And in fact, they will. and because their perception now has been lowered of you as an expert, you've just knocked yourself out of the position of power, which you really want to stay in. You are the authority and the expert in what you know. You've just knocked yourself out of that chair. And so they will micromanage you. They will turn into, the nicest person will turn into a difficult client because you've just taught them that that is what they need to do. They don't have faith in your abilities anymore.
Yeah, and you create effectively a toxic relationship between you and that client.
Yeah.
That's such a difficult thing to fix, just like in any other relationship. But
and the other thing, and you know, these PITA clients, the pain in the ass clients, they totally suck away your time, your energy, and they take away from the good clients who you should be spending all the time on.
oh, absolutely. I don't know how many times I've heard phrases like, oh, this client only accounts for 10% of my revenue, but they take up 90% of my time. And
Yeah.
that's when you know that there's a big problem at hand.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you're absolutely right when you say that saying no is a game changer. And so what I've found again and again in my own life, my own work experience, and then in my clients is when you say no, all these doors open, and all of a sudden you get these people who are absolutely willing to pay you a premium price, the price that you're charging. And the other thing that, you know, people often don't consider is that opportunity cost of working with a PITA client, and not just that they actually drain your time because they ask for things and they cause you to make less money, but a lot of entrepreneurs, when you're working with this type of client and they're complaining, like you get mentally and emotionally and spiritually fatigued. It causes anxiety, and that's no way to live. Like none of us deserve to be treated poorly. I believe that.
Oh, and absolutely. And I think that actually leads really nicely into one of the other subjects that I mentioned to you the other day that has been a big point of conversation with many of the people that I've been working with and collaborating with, which is burnout. And it's such a big topic right now, especially with all of these people talking about wanting to escape the 9 to 5 or be their own boss and everything. And even within the workplace with higher demands and higher aspirations of people, that they just hit that wall because, like you said, it's not about just the time, it's about the emotional drain. And I've heard such a variety of thoughts on this, everything from as long as you enjoy what you do, you'll never burn out, over to the other side where it's there needs to be like an X amount of self-care involved. And I've seen a variety of things, and I don't think there's a single right answer, but in terms of the clients that you work with, what do you see as being the best, I guess, protection against that sort of burnout?
Yeah, the number one thing that I think that entrepreneurs need to do, and you know, I always say it gets really weird when you are a solopreneur because you're schizophrenic, right? Because you wear all the hats. So you wear the hat of the technician or the person who's doing the billable hours or the billable work, right? You're the marketer, you're the HR person if you want to bring in subcontractors or assistants or whatever it is, or employees. You are the CEO. So you have all these different hats. So you're kind of schizophrenic. That said, no matter what the size of your business, you have to put on the CEO hat and you have to look at your business and make decisions about how you're spending your time as the CEO. You have to look at how your employee is spending their time, even if it's you. Again, this is the schizophrenic part. And then you have to make decisions about every position in the company. And again, you have to think of it as an org chart because you truly do have all functions being carried out in any organization, even if it's an organization of one. And then look at each position and say, is this the highest and best use of that role's time? And if it is not, then you need to automate, delegate, or possibly delete if it's not a great activity. And so that's the one piece. And then the other piece is creating systems so you're not ad hocing things each and every time. And so for a coach, for example, since I think you have a lot of coaches in your audience, what you want to do is you want to look at how you're delivering your services if you're offering one-on-one and group coaching, and then you want to create a standard operating procedure for how you run that. You want to have checklists. You want to have automation with things like the welcome email and rolling the person into, if there is a Facebook group or a some modules that help support that. You want to automate as much as possible, but then standardize your service delivery so that you save time. And then I do believe in work-life balance, because we are our best asset to our company, and we have to eat well, and we have to take care of ourselves and our fitness. So there has to be time for that.
And I think especially, the systems that you're talking about, I just had a conversation actually in a previous call that it's funny to see how when people decide whether they want to go fully on their own or whether they want to buy into a thing like a franchise or something like that, that it has to be the systems that lead people in, because they don't quite know how to build those systems on their own. So they buy into someone who has all these pre-made things. It's sort of like a vending machine. Here's a business, just add money. And I know that you talk a lot about, and I love this phrase, the building the airplane while flying it. And it's something, actually, my friend Samir and I had this conversation a while back, that it's so important now with all the resources that we have with the community on LinkedIn, that you allow yourself to do that. You allow yourself that space to grow and develop, even if it is in the public's eye, because you're documenting a journey and you're not sitting back waiting for perfection. So what made you come up with that analogy, I guess?
Well, so I'm just kind of trying to think where to tackle that. So it all comes back to mindset. So I want to start there. And one of the things that I do with my clients, you probably, I do with my clients, you probably do with your clients, is a lot of mindset work. Absolutely. Because the truth is that unless we get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, we're not going to be able to grow our business. So I've worked with clients at all different size companies, CEOs, and the truth is you're always going to step into a new problem. The bigger your company gets, the bigger your problems get. And when I was growing my own company, now as I'm growing this newer one, the thing that happens is you have to become a problem solver. So that's the first piece. And you have to feel uncomfortable. You have to feel comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So this whole concept of building the airplane while you're flying it is this idea that the software companies get. And so they put out something called the minimum viable product. I love this idea because what they do is they have their users beta test it and then they fix it and they just kind of iterate. Well, you can do the same thing with your systems. You can do it with your programs. You can do it with your courses. And the truth is, and this is where a lot of entrepreneurs get hung up, the truth is that if you're sitting behind your computer trying to create the perfect, right? There's no perfect, but people think there is, the perfect email, the perfect course, the perfect program, you will fail. And the reason is because without getting out into the field, so to speak, and actually getting feedback from the people you're having sales calls with, people landing on your landing page or interfacing with clients who are using that, you don't actually know what people want. You don't know how people are going to react. And every single business is a little bit different. Every single audience is a little bit different. And so, let's just say we both decided to do LinkedIn courses. Yeah. Well, the truth is that our audiences, your audience and my audience, our LinkedIn courses would be different based on our own experiences, but also the feedback that we're getting. So the best thing to do, from my perspective, is build the first couple of modules, then try to sell it. You haven't put much time into it, and sort of start seeing what happens. And then you can see if there's interest. You can just even throw up a sales page and build it live. Yeah. If not everybody's comfortable with that, they want to do the first couple of modules, but don't go ahead and do all 8 weeks or whatever it is, because the thing is you're going to have to redo it once you get that feedback.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important factor that I think a lot of people forget, is that adaptability. because really it is like a business version of Darwinism. The people that win and the companies that survive are the ones that adapt best to the changes. And
Right.
I love watching different, I guess, different industries or different kinds of businesses or entrepreneurs find this, I guess, find where within this idea they fit in. And especially with the internet, it's opened up so many different things. And I know talk about that as if the internet is brand new, but it's funny to see how people are finding new ways, like in the video game industry, that people are excited to get to play the latest game. And if they get to try it early, they're really excited. But at the same time, developers are getting free testing effectively and free feedback. Musicians are using forums to post demos and ideas. Artists are putting work in progress, paintings online. Businesses are, like you said, sort of releasing the minimal viable product. There are all these different ways of utilizing effectively free focus groups. So
yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Free focus groups who pay you.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think it's crazy to see how many people, like you said, are sort of sitting in a room working on a company that no one knows is there. And I think it ties so well into the mindset, because for me, for example, when I first ventured out onto sort of my own ventures, which is quite recent that I actually left my old company, but I remember feeling like such an imposter when I had business cards made, because I thought, oh, well, it's not really a business yet. It's not this. And then I sort of had to take a step back and think, well, surely if I want to get out there and build a business, I can't think, oh, it's not a business until a certain point. You have to sort of get into that mindset of you need to think as if you are a business before you have your first client, because if you're not thinking that way before you get that client, what is that client going to buy into, really?
That's right. That's right. And, everything is, from my perspective, that sort of build it as you're flying it, because even with systems, what I encourage my clients to do is to, like, let's just say you want to create a checklist for writing a blog post.
Yeah.
Just like spend 10 minutes and write a checklist.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. And then next time you write a blog post, try to follow it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I need to change these things. Great. Then the second time you use the checklist, try to follow it. And then you'll fix a couple more things. So you get to improve it as you go along. So everything is like that. But you are so right in that you need to think as a business, you need to be as a business, you need to get yourself out there. And that idea of imposter syndrome is so common. And I think we get that because we think we have to have a certification or a degree or a certain number of experiences or years of experience or a certain number of case studies or testimonies. And like, none of that is true.
No.
You don't need a portfolio. I mean, to sell something, all you need is one person to believe that you know more than they do about a topic area.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah. And I think sort of to add on top of that, you also need to be a person that believes that you can sell on that topic as well, because everyone around you could believe in you more than anyone, but if you don't believe in it, the likelihood of you acting on it is very minuscule. And
that's right. You have to believe in yourself.
And because I've seen people doubt this phrase, they say, oh, well, if everyone else around you believes in you, surely you would go for it anyway. But the thing is, you might, out of almost positive peer pressure. But people that do that tend to give up quickly as well, because they see the first resistance or first bump in the road and they go, oof, I knew I wasn't good enough for this. And it reinforces all these negative narratives they have in their head, all these false stories that they've been telling themselves.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly why I encourage all of my clients and why I also do daily mindset work. And I think it's so important. It's something I actually resisted it for a long time. I had my own set of fears. I was scared that my clients might see me as too woo-woo, and that's not an arena that fits my image of myself. And what's so interesting is like how we sometimes have to get past ourselves. Like, even though I'm a person who, if I wasn't feeling well and I went to the doctor and what the doctor said wasn't working, like I'd go out and probably try acupuncture or energy medicine or whatever. Like I'd try things, like I don't have to know how it works. And so, am I woo-woo? Maybe, and so I had to kind of like look at that. But then, I started to feel more comfortable because I'm a research person. That's always where I like to come from. I read about the neuroscience. I read about athletes and performance activities. And so I sort of came up with ways for myself to do it. And then what happened was that I started giving my clients mindset work, and their results just multi-x'd. And the reason is because they started to shift what they believed was capable, what they themselves were capable of. And so it's incredibly powerful. And now I don't care if people think I'm woo-woo or not, like I've moved past my own limiting beliefs, and that was a limiting belief for me. And limiting beliefs are so interesting because they're so insidious, right? Yeah. They come up as things that we think, like, because they're part of our identity. The imposter syndrome is another one. That's just a limiting belief that we have to overcome. But it's fascinating how insidious our brains can be and convince us that what we believe is a limitation, that it actually is. When we do the mindset work, we can get past that.
Absolutely. And I think as well, it's a lot of self-work involved. And I actually did a video a while back about, when you have that self-doubt, it's so hard to build up to believing in it, but it takes so little to then undo that work if you allow it to. And so you start to spiral in the other direction. And one of the tips that I gave in that video was, writing yourself notes, or even recording yourself saying to yourself when you feel good, why you feel confident, and saving great sales calls or great videos or whatever you're working on, having something that you're proud of, and having all of that sort of together so that when you have that rainy day, you can sit down and look at something that is almost like a positive reinforcement from you, because if it's you who said it, it means that you believed it, rather than, me feeling down in the dumps and my wife coming and patting me on the back and saying, no, that's not it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I totally know what you mean. And we have to find that in ourselves. Yeah. No one else can do it. At least for me, I came from a dysfunctional childhood, so I had to work through a lot of things in my brain, and my husband couldn't do it for me. My friends couldn't do it for me, because the thing that is really interesting, especially when you come from a dysfunctional background or had trauma, like so many of us had, you have had that built into your neural pathways that you're not good enough, or you're not lovable, or you're not worthy, or whatever those beliefs were built in because you didn't get the right care. You have to overcome those. And someone else who says to you, like, you're lovable or you're worthy, like, you're still not going to believe it if you don't believe it, no matter how many times they say it.
Absolutely. And I think it's such an important factor to remember, that you need to be your own, both biggest fan, but also biggest critic at the same time, but it just needs to be done in a healthy way.
That's right. Yeah. What do you think is a healthy way to be your own critic?
I think the two have to coexist. I think you have to be critical of what you do, but it's this thing where if you don't have that other side to sort of weigh up against it, if you don't also give yourself credit for things, the critique will just start feeling harsh. And I think it's this thing where even if you mess something up completely, finding that thing you did well and focus on how am I going to do it better next time, rather than thinking, oh, how much did I mess this up? And there's a great part of a book called The Score Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh. I'll admit, I'm not really a massive sports fan, but I read the book and it's pretty incredible. And there's this part where he talks about that after every loss, he gave himself some time to, in his words, grieve. He gave himself time to feel bad about it, but then he made sure that he didn't spend too much time. He set himself almost a time limit of, I'm going to feel bad for like a day, but tomorrow I'll be fully on, watching the recording of the game, analyzing where did we go wrong, and then actioning that to make sure that before the next game, he's fixed any problem that he could find. And I think that's such a powerful mindset to be in. Like you said, you know, being a problem solver rather
Hmm.
than swallowing in it.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting that you say that. My husband's actually a pro mountain bike rider,
Yeah.
and I see him do something like that. And so when he doesn't do as well in a race as he would like, he will sort of go inward. And I don't know what he's doing inside there, but you know, he doesn't really want to talk. He's sullen, but he'll usually just do that for a couple hours. And then whatever the event is, he will, you know, kind of gather himself and then congratulate the winner and just, you know, go and chat and network and do whatever, you know, interact with his sponsors, all of the things that he needs to do. And, you know, generally, he's just pretty remarkable in that way. You know, he will completely just be truly happy for the folks that won and did better than him, but he does take, I think, that same concept that you use, he takes, you know, an hour or two to just grieve, you know, and he does it sort of on his own, and then comes right back into the venue and is, you know, just really, really, truly happy for the folks who did better, or, you know, whatever. It's really, it's nice to see.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of, you know, to bring it back to almost the beginning, I think that's something that you need to build as a personal system in a way. And the sooner you become aware of how you're doing those sort of state management things, the better. For me, for example, anytime I go on stage, whether it is to, you know, do a speech or public speaking engagement, or if it's playing my music, I tend to, for maybe the last 5 to 10 minutes before I go on stage, I like to sit on my own completely, sort of go fully introvert before stepping on stage, fully extrovert. And usually for, you know, a couple of minutes after I finish, I like to just sit in silence. And sometimes people have thought, oh, he probably wasn't happy about his performance, or he was a bit disappointed in that. But actually, I just find it quite therapeutic. It's almost like the two extremes of my personality get to,
Yeah.
in coexisting, they get to almost split apart for that time span. And it's really interesting. I've never been able to fully explain why that works for me, but I know
Uh-huh.
it does, so I just do it.
I think that's a really good point too, is like each of us has to find what works for us. So some of us are extroverts, some are introverts, some have a background of being shy, or maybe we had something that held us back, whether it was a speech impediment or, you know, trauma or whatever it is. But we have to find our own methodology for grounding ourselves, bringing up our excitement, whatever it is. And um, I always tell my clients to come from a place in their business, but also their spiritual practice, their fitness, their mindset work, from a place of dynamism. And what that means is, like, there's no right way except the right way for them. So I can give systems, I can give lots of best practices based on building my own businesses, and helping clients to build their businesses. But ultimately, their job is to take those recommendations and then dynamically evolve them into something that works perfectly for them.
Absolutely. And I think it's such an important thing for people to realize that there isn't a one size fits all. It's that authenticity that really matters at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
like you're saying, with a solopreneur, being able to wear all those different hats, but feel authentic in each and every one. If they don't feel authentic, troubleshooting it. Why not? Such an important factor. We are
Truly.
we are almost out of time, so I just want to take a second to really thank you for joining us today. It's been a great talk, and we've actually managed to cover off the topics that we wanted to discuss. So I'm really happy about that. And for everyone,
Fantastic.
and if for everyone watching, if you need anyone to help you scale your business or help you get over some of the shortcomings you feel that you're hitting in your road towards success, definitely hit up Wendy, because she can help you really supercharge and, like she said, sort of build what you said, up to 8 figures, right? I don't want to make any promises here, but
Yeah, you know, I work with anyone from startup all the way up, you know, to about 10 to 20 million in annual revenue. Past that, it gets pretty bureaucratic and departmental. So
yeah, so anyone out there, definitely speak to her. She's lovely to speak to, and I imagine even better to work with.
thank you so much. Thank you. It's been great having me on with you. That was an awkward way to put it. And thank you so much to everyone listening.